Hey y'all, how are you doing? This is just a weekly check-in today. I wanted to share some things with you that I think you'll be very interested in. Got some good news that we've all been anxious to hear. It's hard to believe, but this Sunday will be our 8th Sunday in a row to be out of church due to the pandemic. It started just 2 weeks after Ash Wednesday, you'll remember, and made for a very long Lent. And now, almost 20 days into our 50-day Easter season, we're finally able to see a glimmer of light at the end of this virus tunnel. Quick diversion first. I know the social isolation, easy for me to say, the social isolation has been difficult. It has for me. I've really missed y'all. And like you, missing our church family on Sunday and worship, singing, praying, sharing the Lord's body and blood at the altar, being together face to face and sharing food and fellowship in the parish hall afterwards. Man, that's tough. I know. I really miss it. And if I'm not careful, I can very easily begin descending into a spiral, into a very deep funk. It's very hard to escape. And I don't know if any of y'all have been there, but I have a few times during this last 8 weeks. I have to remind myself of the necessity to be a Christian. That is, I'm called to be intentional about focusing on spiritually healthy practices, simple ones, but hard ones, like gratitude, contentment, patience, hope, optimism, peace in a sense of serenity, grace, empathy, love, forgiveness, compassion, and joy, in order to weed out that negative thinking that tries to make its way in and does so successfully more often than not. And that makes it for a very discouraging time. It leads me to focus instead on the unhealthy opposites of all of those aforementioned spiritual disciplines. And this is not exactly second nature for me. So in case you wonder what those opposites are, ingratitude, discontent, impatience, despair, pessimistic, irritable, contemptuous, hateful, blaming, apathetic, miserable. No one wants to be that person. And yet, you can very easily go there if you let yourself. But a Christ-like personality is filled with those positive traits, not the negative ones. And they're all given to us. We all receive them at our baptism by none other than the Holy Spirit. All we have to do, with God's help, is remove a blanket that covers them up. And that blanket is our ego. Remove the ego and give those holy attributes some air to breathe. As usual, I'm preaching to myself, but I know I'm not alone in this struggle. So I just suggest to you to reread Philippians 4 if you haven't in a while. It is essential reading for times like this. Okay, I needed to say that because I know it's been an experience of a lot of us. So sorry for the detour. Now back to the good news. Last week, the bishop met with priests from the various convocations through Zoom meetings to hear our thoughts about reopening the churches. And he then spoke to his, I think he did this last Monday, he spoke to his group of advisors on the science and infection control end of things. And this morning, he finally sent us a letter, the priest. He sent us a letter with his guidelines about reopening our churches. All right, it's not going to be as fast as you want, but it's not as long as you think either, maybe. This is the first day of May, and despite what the governor says, has nothing to do with us. This is the first day of May, and we will be back in church on some level well before the end of the month. Here's a brief summary. The bishop has a plan that goes in 3 phases, A, B, and C. And Plan A is basically a plan to take communion to those at home, which is all of you, in some way. We can do that in a safe way He's allowing that to start happening. Plan B is that we can begin to start gathering in church in groups of no more than 10. 10, that's a small number. And if we're doing worship, one of those 10 is me. So that's nine people and the priest. The third expansion of this plan is Plan C, which means we gather as many as we can get in the church that maintain 6 feet social distancing, which means in our church, that's about 25% of our capacity, which is about 25 to, well, no, I'd say it's more like 35 to 40. I've already measured it off. And so that's the last phase. Not the last phase, but the phase before we kind of get back to whatever our normal is going to be. Now, we don't have to do any of these things, these phases, as they come up, as we're allowed to. We cannot do more than the bishop allows, but we can certainly do less. And we, because we are in a county that is outside of the hotspot of Dallas and the surrounding counties of Dallas, Collin County, Denton County, some of those, we are allowed to start at B. We can skip over A. We can actually begin to have meetings in the church of groups of 10 or less. So, this is the rector's call, nobody else's. I will make the call. I have discussed this with the vestry at length over the last couple of weeks, and we've actually made some plans about how we might go about this, and we're all in agreement about how to move forward. We are allowed to start this on May 17th with groups of 10, but we're not going to start that early. There's a lot of escalating counts of the virus in Dallas, as you know. Every day they're setting a new record, and there's still some happening out here. We have a lot of people from Dallas who are visiting our area to kind of get away from things, and some of them are bringing that virus right here with us. We want to see what it looks like for the first couple of weeks after things open up before we make that commitment, because we want to do this in the safest way possible for y'all. So we will, well, the plan is at this point to start the following week, May 24th. May 24th. There'll be safety precautions when we meet. Masks will be required, as I sent you an email about this yesterday, I think, and social distancing. Those are not optional. The bishop made that clear. Mask and social distancing 6 feet apart are not optional. They are musts. We will not be passing the peace and touching each other. We won't be having fellowship. We won't be having food. The kitchen's off limits. Just coming for our meetings and leaving. Groups of no more than 10. I think that's a good place to start for a couple of reasons. There are a lot of people who are very leery about coming to church when you've got 30 or 40 people. And I think most people may feel safer coming in a group of 10 with the protocol that we're going to have. You don't have to come, and we will still try to, once we start these services and having communion, bringing communion to those who don't want to come or don't feel safe about coming yet. And we'll probably still do the online things. Online for us has been a video of my sermon and a handout for you. We'll probably still do that for those who are not coming until such time as everybody feels safe about coming. All the meetings, as I said, must be masked and must practice social distance. So any church group wanting to meet in the church for Bible study, for group reunion, for any other purpose that can be 10 or less, can reserve a time and place through me. That will have to happen so that I have it on the calendar. And there will only be 2 places to meet. One will be the parish hall, and one will be in the church. The conference room is off limits. You simply can't have social distance in there. So there'll be 2 places. In the parish hall, there will be chairs set up around designated tables that'll be in kind of a circle, so that you have a safe distance apart, and that's where people are to sit if they're going to have a meeting. You'll already have that set up for you. And it also means that we know exactly where people are sitting when we come back in to disinfect after the meeting. In the church worship area, it'll be the same thing. There'll be designated seats close to the front. A leader can have a chair outside the group. So it's only going to be 3 rows of people at 3 on a row, 9 and a leader. So those places, those chairs that are designated will be the ones that we will clean and sanitize afterwards. So that makes it easy for us. Those in the church who are meeting in the church will use the restrooms outside the church doors. Don't come up the steps toward the parish hall. You just stay on that end. If you're meeting in the parish hall, you use the restrooms on that end, and you don't go down to the other end. Everybody avoids the kitchen for any reason. You don't go to the refrigerator. You don't get anything out. In fact, we'll probably have some tape across the entranceways, 2 entranceways to the kitchen. No food, no drinks allowed. Remember, you've got masks on. Okay, now, about worship. About worship, we will be worshiping 10 at a time, 9 people and me. So there'll be 3 to a row, 1 person on each end and 1 in the middle. There'll be 2 seats between each person, and every other row will be used. So we'll use the 1st and 3rd rows or the 2nd and 4th rows, whatever. That you'll know where to sit because there will be bulletins that I will place in certain chairs where you're supposed to sit. So you won't have to use a prayer book. So we don't have to worry about sanitizing prayer books. We'll have a bulletin there for you, and you can take that home. In fact, it'd be good if you did. Just take it with you. There'll be 3 to a row, as I mentioned. No prayer books. Now, for communion, this is tricky because for me to give you communion means I'm right there in your face. And I'll have a mask on, but still, that's too close, and I'm touching your hand, I'm touching the next hand, and so on and so on. So the best way to do this is we will have a small table in front of the altar entrance, like a TV tray type table with a cover on it. And I will place 9 consecrated wafers around it, enough separation where you won't touch the other one, and y'all will come up one at a time and take a wafer, because we're only having bread only, remember, no wine, and go back to your seat. And that's the safest way I can think of to do it. And we'll worry about how we do it with larger numbers when we have larger numbers, but we're going to be here for a while, I'm sure. I also think we'll plan a short fellowship time in worship, right after worship, so that we don't go to another place. We'll stay where we are, but we'll have a time just to visit, catch up, talk in place, okay? And we may do that for 10 or 15 minutes and before we conclude our worship. Now, I'm gonna write all this down and send it to you, but I kind of want to do it in person first. There are 4 worship times we'll try with 10 people. Remember, 9 of you and 1 me. On Sunday, here's what I'm planning to do. I will do a service, a Eucharist, for 9 o'clock for 9 people. Again at 11 a.m. on Sunday for 9 people. At 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. for 9 people. That's 36 people. That may be all that is interested in coming. Any others, I will do at noon on Wednesday. If there's even more, then we'll figure out another time on Wednesday, if needed. What we'll need to do is provide a time for you to sign up for a reserved spot on a first-come basis. And after each meeting, every service, the area will be disinfected. All of this is going to be sent to you on an email. But I just wanted to have this opportunity for a face-to-face. So this is encouraging, right? I think so. Slower than maybe you had hoped, but also we're heading in the right direction. So remember Philippians 4, if you're feeling a little negative about this. So we'll be in this phase until the bishop says otherwise. We have no idea when that will be. Call or email me with questions. Let me know as soon as possible if you plan to attend on that Sunday, May 24th. And I will plug you in based on the order of your request when it's received. And then I'll send a list out. Worship materials for this Sunday will be coming tomorrow. And that's about all the time I have for right now. My time's up. I have to do this inside of 15 minutes. Now you know why the sermons have been shorter than usual. God bless you and keep you.